Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. Enterprise Bank and Trust was founded by entrepreneurs with the core focus of serving privately owned small and medium-sized businesses who have a story to tell. Enterprise Bank's commitment is to listen, learn, and guide clients to a lifetime of financial success. Enterprise Bank, together, there's no stopping you. My name is Joel Goldberg, coming to you from the Kansas City Audiovisual Studios. They create engaging spaces. Check them out at kcav.com. A lot going on in the world, certainly for me. As we stream this live, it's December 8th. It'll come out on iTunes next week. And by the time it is out on iTunes, my first book will officially be available. It is called Small Ball, Big Results. I ask that small ball question on this podcast all the time. What are the little things that add up to the big things? It's going to be available in numerous spots, but a couple of places for sure that'll be guaranteed. You'll be able to find it on Amazon, so you can look for me or the name Small Ball, Big Results. I'll start putting out links to that soon too. You could also find out more information on my website. That'll be up soon, joelgoldbergmedia.com. So excited for the release of this book. And it's a collection of baseball stories and stories from this podcast and the people that I've met along the way. And my guest today is someone that gave me some advice back in April. We'll talk about that in a moment. That made its way into the book because it was a profound piece of advice that I think applies to everyone, and it was certainly a little bit of a wake-up call for me too. So my guest is Michael Tracy. He's the owner and managing principal of OMNI Human Resources Management, which is a management and human resources consulting firm in Overland Park, Kansas. They employ staff of 20 professionals and served over 500 organizations throughout the region. Prior to forming his company in 1998, Michael spent over 20 years working in corporate human resource leadership roles with various companies. And I've had the chance to get to know Michael over the years. And there are a handful of people that I say this about, that when I sit down and meet with them, and we need to get out for a cup of coffee in person again sometime when the world gets a little bit safer, I always learn something. And I always am better because of it. And so I think that that'll be the case for everyone listening or watching this podcast today. I'm happy to be joined right now by Michael Tracy. Michael, how are you?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. And I know it's good to see you. And I know that I mentioned to you that I reached out to you in April, and you were standing right where you are right now in the official home office. And I was sitting in my truck, and I was a bit of a panicked mess. Actually, now that I think about it, I think you might have been in a different location, but for some reason your backdrop looked familiar. But regardless of that, I was like, if I look back at where I was in April, I was a mess. I was out of work. There was not going to be baseball for a while, and I didn't know how to go about things. And I've got to think that in the world of human resources, that you were seeing a lot of that at different levels, weren't you?
There's a lot of stuff, a lot of people in a lot of weird places. Even if they had a job, they weren't going to work. And those industries that have been so beat up with COVID, are in a challenging time. So it's been just obviously chaos this last year, and everybody's dealing with it their own way, But it's been fascinating. It's been fascinating.
Well, I look at the words human resources. It's about people. It's always about people, and they're being challenged. We're all being challenged in different ways. So here's the advice that Michael gave me, or at least the words of wisdom that he passed on. And they are words that I've used when I speak to groups now, usually virtually. And it's this, that there is a mental equity being built right now. I suppose, Michael, there always is, right? But everyone's senses are up. Their guard is up. And what you had said to me is that people will remember, good or bad, how you treated them during these tough times, that it will resonate later on. So I want you to expand upon that a little bit, because I believe truly that is something that applies to everyone, no matter what they do in life. And when we're up against it and we're challenged, you really notice what people do or don't do for you.
That's nice of you to say. I'm glad that helped. I think that one of the attributes I think that builds that demonstrates character of people is the pain all mine, and is about me, or can I just turn this table around and go, you know what? There's a lot of other people like or worse than me. What can I do to help them out? and that builds character and relationships, and helps identify you as a person who is willing to not be about me and help somebody out. Your question, and I'll jump to this. I don't want to jump your story. What's a small ball? What are the little things that add up to the big things? I think being known as somebody who can easily turn the table and reach out to somebody else is what builds your brand, and it makes an impact on people. So I don't know. I've lived by that. We're all blessed. We have blessings whether we have a job or not. Don't really realize how blessed we really are. And there's a lot of other people who could use a little bit more help. Just my deal.
Yeah, no, and I think it's perspective, right? I mean, it was a shift for me, and I'd always, and I think always will be someone that wants to help others out. But I think, at least on my end personally, backed against the wall and out of work at a time where I've always worked, April, May, June, baseball season, that there was that default was, who can I find to help me? Where can I get help? And once I realized that I had something to offer other people, that really, I think, built a lot of goodwill. Maybe that goodwill was already built, but it also feels good to be able to go out there and help others. That's the world that you're in too. And so I wanted to ask you about that a little bit. And busy time of the year for you, the end of the year is, but how challenging or different has this year been for you and for your company?
In this profession, the human resource profession, which I've been doing for, as you sort of added up, a long time. I don't think 20 and 20. I don't think I've ever seen a year as absolutely nuts as this year in this profession. As you mentioned, every business, it's really about people. They either like their job or they don't. They're good at what they do or they're not. They fit on the team or they don't. And we've been faced with so many external things that have just taken business and shaken it up. That how does an organization, how does a team continue to function? You add on top of that, we've had legislation to implementation in 14 days this year with COVID laws. And that's been amazing. The pivoting and adjusting that businesses have had to do to try and help people get through this period of time. Sick pays and family leaves. This profession has absolutely been challenged, and it's been, I hate to say it because it sounds a little self-serving, fascinating. And there's never been a need, I think, for us in this field to try to help organizations and people figure out how do we keep heading north or heading our direction while the storm is just crashing our boats. And it's been really quite fascinating to be able to watch, help, learn, see, human behavior and how businesses continue to figure this thing out. So it's been amazing. Yeah.
Well, I think that's interesting too, because if you've been at this a long time, which I'm not doubting, but again, all perspective, we could say how many years, if that's a long time or a lot. But you're an experienced person and an experienced executive in the HR world. And so I wonder, in some ways, some things never change. People are people. But in other ways, the world is always evolving, of course. And the pandemic just puts a stamp on that. It exaggerates that. But we're always evolving, maybe a little bit more slowly than what we've had to do right now. So what have you learned in these last 8 months that, amidst all of your wisdom, that you didn't know before?
I think one of the things that has become all the more imperative, and there's never been a time for owners and leaders and managers to manage with emotional intelligence more than there is now. Because personally, my company are dealing with people who are in such an emotional spectrum, from scared to concerned to I don't care, I just want to get back to work, and everything in between. And the emotional spectrum of the people that work with us is across the board. And if we as leaders and owners can't figure out how to manage with emotional intelligence, we'll never keep everybody under the tent. You may keep them under the tent with a paycheck, but emotionally they won't be there. And even as we get into, as long as we've been doing this now, managing with emotional intelligence and figuring out how to keep everybody under the tent is a very extraordinary challenge that some are better at than others. So I think that's been one of the huge outcome learnings we're still going through right now. We're still going through. People that are managing intentionally by trying to reach out, do the health calls, do the health checks, stay in touch, are working their way into at least getting an effort for people to stay on board. People that aren't attuned to that, it's not their nature. They don't want to take the time. They got too much work to do. People are starting to sort of trickle away and lose their energy to be part of the team. So it's been fascinating.
So how do you keep that energy up then too? And this, I don't know if this is the same topic or a little bit different, but what I'm noticing now, among the many conversations that I have with executives, is that they're tired. They're tired of being on Zoom calls. They're tired of this new routine. And I feel like so many of us have spent so much time saying, hey, embrace this, which I firmly believe. I think it's very counterproductive to sit there and say, I can't wait till we get back to the way it was before, because it's never going to fully be the way it was before. At the same time, this takes a lot of mental fatigue and exhaustion from just being on one call to the next and missing that face-to-face. How do you get through this?
Yeah. Zoom fatigue is becoming pretty apparent. I think the thing that helps people get through it is recognizing the need to not always be about business. What's the Zoom happy hour? What's the Zoom coffee? There are some people who have a higher sense and a need to belong. And it isn't always about work. I mean, work is social for so many people. And if we don't recognize that and don't add social into our distance, then, those folks will clearly get disillusioned. So I think taking the technology and making the best faith effort to try to keep people together, it's not always about work. And I think whatever can be done to try to help people feel belong, have some fun, have some laughs, can be done remotely. And it sometimes just helps keep people a little bit closer, to what's going on.
You were telling me, Michael, before we started the call, and I've seen this too, how much people are willing to get on the phone. And that's been strange because we all became so used to just the text messages and the emails and the convenience of that. But people are available to talk right now. How has that changed the dynamic? And how does that feed into what you're talking about too, about, hey, you don't need to make everything business. Now maybe all those calls are still business, but it does feel like more people are accessible than have ever been accessible before via phone call.
They are. More people have their cats and dogs in the Zoom meeting. More people have their crying babies in the meeting. There's this 2 years. I used to try to want to get us to be videoed with clients for years. People, I don't like it. I don't want anybody to see my face, yada, yada, yada. Now what's fascinating is, my kid's crying in the background. My cat's climbing up here, knocking stuff off the shelf. The humanization of this form of communication is in fact making ourselves a lot more social with each other. And in effect, you can laugh at the cat behind you when you're trying to talk business, and you've actually brought to the discussion some humor and some engagement that does in fact help people feel a little more comfortable about belonging. So I think that the fact that we've taken the anxiety of, I don't want anybody to see me, has significantly improved our ability to have these kind of water cooler discussions through video technology. So it's helped. It's softened the blow for people.
It'll be interesting to see when this is all done, if there's such a thing. I mean, it's going to get better. How many people take what we have right now and use it later? I mean, we've all thought about this, right? Do I need to go to the coffee? There are a lot of them we want to be able to go to, but does it make sense to drive 45 minutes away and 45 minutes back when we could do 45 minutes right here? And that'll be interesting, I think, just to see going forward the way people use their time.
It will be very interesting to see how travel changes, social changes. It's been very interesting in the search side of what we do. People are getting interviewed and hired and never shaking hands and being in the same room. What was otherwise unheard of, is becoming a little more normal. I think as the world gets back to normal, though, it will be interesting, whatever the new normal looks like. Right. It will be interesting to see, because there is still this separation of the work from home population. Hey, this is kind of cool. I kind of want to do this on a regular basis now. And businesses are struggling with how to deal with this emotional intelligence. Well, do we let people? Do we bring them back in? Do we make them come back in? I use the phrase, getting the band back together again when this is all done is not going to be easy, because we will have also accommodated people with a work-life balance, that they don't like to drive downtown. There's a good and a bad. I made somebody happy. They don't have to drive downtown. The bad is you're not having FaceTime with people who want to have FaceTime. So it will be interesting to see how the work style, work-life balance evolves after this, because we've created such a paradigm, a change in paradigm, that some people will stick with it, and it will have, you'll get the band back together again, but it may not be all the same players. You may have a new drummer because the old one wants to work from home, and it'll be different. It'll be different coming back.
I'll go back to use the word you just did. It's fascinating. It really is. I mean, we don't know exactly what that looks like or who those people are that will or won't. And there may not be a right or wrong answer either. It's going to be a comfort level. And so that's going to be fascinating to see how that one shakes out for sure. And I'm excited to see where it goes. Okay, I want to pivot here a little bit and go to my baseball themed questions, brought to you by Kissick Construction, trusted team, reliable partner. Check them out at kissickco.com. In your career, which we've established is a long career, right? 20 and 20. What's the biggest home run that you've hit in your career, Michael?
I started OMNI in 1998 with the effort to try to say, look, if you're really any good, will people actually pay you to help them? And 22 years later, we have an amazing team of people, and we help and serve on a shared service basis an amazing group of clients every year. And I can't think of anything for which I've been more blessed than be able to take this profession, apply it to mostly small, medium firms, a little bit like Enterprise Bank. That's our market, and who don't have access to a bunch of corporate HR types, or nor should they ever hire any of us individually, just as kind of expensive. But to be able to do that for as many years and have people keep paying us to help them out it's the most amazing success I could have ever dreamed. And to be able to have a great team of people to do it. So that's really been a blessing. Very proud of that. Very proud.
Well, I would think at the level that you're at in terms of the types of clients that you're working with and the size, you have that ability to build those relationships, which we all should always be doing anyway, but it's a little bit easier where you're at, and important too, right? I mean, that's part of the package, is that face-to-face or Zoom-to-Zoom or whatever it is nowadays.
In our profession, we deal with the most intimate element of your organization. That's people that don't get along, people that need to come, people that need to go. You're going to grow the organization. Sometimes you can't grow the organization with the same folk. You need more. You need different talents. And it's not something you can do as a vendor. You can only do it as a partner. And you can have your internet provider be a vendor, but you really can't and don't want your HR counsel to be a vendor. And I think that's where we've enjoyed a lot of long-term partnerships. And the outcomes are that the proof of this is in the pudding. Are our clients bigger and better organizations because we help field them with the right athletes to become division champions? That's a yes or no. And I think we have a great track record of being able to do that. It's fun to see your work. Fun to see your work.
Yeah, I love that. And it's got to be so gratifying to be able to have those partnerships. By the way, I would like my internet provider to be a partner and not a vendor sometimes when it's going out, but that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole other story, man.
That's a whole other story. And I know I'm not the only one that deals with that. We see that one every day too. I don't love, but I always feel bad. And I've had them too, when you have that freak out because you're in the middle of a call, or in my case, I might be moderating something or it's a panel, and then you freeze up and you realize it's not them, it's you. And then you got to do the whole reboot and you're freaking out and you realize somebody's going through this every minute of the day right now. And that's just kind of, it's the dog, it's the kid, it's the rest of it that goes with it. How about a swing and a miss? And what did you learn from it?
So as I look at that question, I will say in this business, a few years ago, we embraced this opportunity to go upgrade technology to a paperless environment and automate all of our manual stuff. We serve and do pay and payroll for over 1,000 people, and upgrading to a greater technological platform was going to be efficient. We're going to be able to scale, and it's going to make life easier. And IT people are not going to want to hear me say this, but what I got out of efficiency, I ended up with a need to figure out how to use this damn stuff, this technology. It's complicated, and it requires an expert that we didn't have. And so where I had savings, I also had a lot of cost and inefficiency, because if you don't know how to use this fancy stuff, then you're not going to get your money's worth out of it anyway. So our transition from old school to new technology wasn't the smoothest, easiest, or frankly cost-effective thing as I hoped. Now, the lesson I learned is technology is a beautiful thing, but one of my phrases is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And technology allows you to do a whole lot of stuff, but it also depersonalizes what we were doing, because now employees don't call us for questions and they don't want to get an answer. They just Google it or look it up, and we pushed automation to the point where we separated relationship. And I will say that, in my business and the impact that it had, that was a big swing, and it was kind of a miss in me not judging the degree of complexity that was going to bring. Now a few years into it, we've figured out how to iron out the wrinkles, but that was kind of an interesting experience for me. Yeah.
All right, so we have the home run and the swing and miss. We hit the small ball before, so I want to go to my 4 final questions as we round the bases. I'll start lighthearted and then we'll move more into business. But you were telling me before we got on that you and your wife got an RV and you're driving around, and so now you are aging yourself as someone that's been, right, you and the rest of the boomers in the world. But I want to jump on. I'm so jealous of what you're doing, and I think that there's never a bad time to go and see the country, but there couldn't be a better time than to do that right now. How liberating or fun of an experience was that, just to be able to hop in there and go where you wanted to go?
We quarantined ourselves on our own box on wheels. We were able to go and just see the country, 2-lane roads as much as possible, stop in little diners, put your mask on, go to the little local grocery store, fill up with provisions, and just see the country. And we went out west, small towns, rural America. It was good to get out of the Johnson County bubble. Mm-hmm. And we'd wake up one day and say, well, how far do you want to drive? What's the weather like? Which direction you want to go, north, south, east, or west? And to have that sort of lack of planning, while difficult for some, was a little liberating. So we had a great time, and looking forward to doing it more.
Yeah, so that'll be my second question as we round the bases. Do you have a bucket list destination in the RV, somewhere you've never been that you just really want to go and check out?
There are several. The national parks in Utah, Bourbon Country in Kentucky, Appalachia, and Northeast, parts we've just never been. This is the time, as I mentioned, we were supposed to be doing more European travel, yada, yada, yada. But the world has altered those plans. And so now we're jumping ahead with this section. And there's a lot of great places that'll be fun to go see. So
Do the Northeast next fall when the leaves are changing, and do the Bourbon Trail whenever. Just make sure you bring back a gift to the host of this podcast, and everything will be okay.
Got it.
All of it sounds amazing. Third question as we round the bases. I was looking through my notes from one of the first times that we met, and you said something that I had jotted down multiple times, and I want you to explain it because I think it's important, certainly in the HR world, but again, we're all people, so this applies to everyone. You gave me the phrase, personality is an and, not an or. Explain that one, because I thought it was profound.
Personality is an and, not an or. Well, I'm going to have to think about the context in which we might have had that particular conversation.
Well, I know that we were talking a little bit about what we've been here today and serving others, and whether you're in or whether you're not, and those beliefs in what you're doing.
I think that in the spirit of if I'm interpreting that, personality.
Now what I'm learning is that this stuff just rolls off of your tongue, and so I thought that this was like one of those like lifetime things. But you were talking a little bit. I'll give you a little bit more of the context too, about what do you want to be. Do you want to be a Division III, a Division II? Who are you? What do you want to be? Who do you want to serve? And I think ultimately you were getting into just the the importance of taking care of people.
Well, I think that if I think of just personal and professional growth, personality is an and, but personality is what it is. And are you good at what you do? Are you able to demonstrate your profession and continue growth in that profession at higher levels? Are you able to make an impact that makes a greater impact at higher levels? I think the analogy I use a lot is, especially with small businesses, are you a D3 organization trying to become a D2 organization? Are you a D2 organization trying to be, you have the same job title called head football coach. You have the same job title at a D3 as a D2. It's a different league. It's a different caliber. It costs more money. It's more complex. It takes more skills. And so the evolution of folk, I think, professionally is to be able to recognize, can I grow into that next level? Can I play in that next league? Businesses grow because they understand they need people at that league. And so at the end of the day, there are people that just kind of wake up every day and be who they are, do what they want to do, and not really grow. And that's okay. I guess from the HR standpoint, the consequences are you may not grow as fast as you hope you will. I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
Yeah, no, it does. And, I think that a bit of the conversation we were having too was, some of it was just advice for me too. It was about making change. It was about impacting people's lives. And we certainly have that ability. Okay, I'll try one more to wrap things up, the walk-off. And this was one, you gave me 3 words. You said talent, team, and karma. And I believe that your tagline to that was that there's no room for a-holes, essentially. But the importance of talent, team, and karma. And we talked about just that sort of that ability to help people with change. That change can hurt. I mean, we're going through all of that right now too. Change is not easy. The status quo is so much easier. You know that. You've seen that in your business forever. But I'm wondering about that combination. You have to have the talent, right? You have to have the right people on that team. I don't know where karma comes into it. Maybe it goes back a little bit to what we were saying before about the way you treat people and building equity. I don't know how this all adds up, but I'll put it together like this. How do you build the ultimate team? How do you bring in the right talent and make this all work during a pandemic or not?
I think that I'll use some analogies that I think relate to this. I use an analogy. I can teach you how to play the piano. I can teach you how to play soccer. I cannot teach you to be a musician, and I cannot teach you to be an athlete. And I think I can motivate you, and I can inspire you, and I can be a role model, but you're the one that has to put in the work if you really want to be a musician. You're the one that has to believe and have a karma about you as understanding I'm an athlete. And I think developing that is something great coaches do, great mentors do, but I can't teach you that. I can teach you the skill, but I can't teach you to be who you want to be. And Joe, I think you're a good example of this, because I'm just going to say that in your development of your professional career here outside of baseball, and developing your podcasts and doing what you're doing with your book, you decided there's a karma about who you want to be. And it didn't have anything to do with how much money you made or what your job title was. It was a karma about who you wanted to be and what you wanted to do, and how do you monetize that? Because I need to monetize that from my family and become who I want to become. And no one could teach you how to do that without you having that I want to become. And there's not a better definition for the word entrepreneur than somebody who wants to go become and make something happen from nothing. And I think that's where people decide, it's not easy. You don't always succeed the first time, but if that's who you are, what you want to do, you'll get there. And people will help you get there.
I think and we'll wrap it up with this. I think that's been one of the most interesting revelations to me, is that people will help, but that involves trust and relationship. It's a lot. You don't just call up some stranger and say, "Hey, can you help me?" And you don't necessarily even reach out to the people in your network and say, "Hey, can you help me?" But when you let them know what you're doing and you offer value back, they're going to do it. It's human nature, right?
Human nature.
The best side of human nature.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And And when you have that, and that's who you are, and that's what you believe, then people want to help people succeed in what they really truly believe. Yeah.
If people want to learn more about OMNI Human Resource Management, they can check out the website at omnihrm.com, so you can learn all about. I don't know if you'll get all the details of Michael's RV excursions, but you will get plenty about the world of human resources and benefits and recruitment and everything that goes on with the services at OMNI. Michael, it's so good to see you. Great to catch up. And I always love the insight. And so I appreciate you sharing with the audience today.
Can't wait to see the book.
Any day now. Michael even got a line in there too. He didn't know that until I told him that today. I don't really know that his world has changed all that much, but I was glad to share some of that wisdom. So great to visit with Michael, and that is going to do it for another episode of Rounding the Bases. Shout out to my sponsors, Kansas City Audio Visual, Kissick Construction, and Enterprise Bank and Trust. Businesses often come to Enterprise Bank because they demand and frankly are worthy of more than the status quo and need a local partner who understands their business. So again, thanks to Kansas City Audio Visual, Kissick Construction, and Enterprise Bank and Trust. The book, you can check it out on Amazon, Small Ball, Big Results. It'll officially be out December 14th. It'll be in some local bookstores. You can find it also at my website at joelgoldbergmedia.com. That is going to do it for Rounding the Bases. I'm Joel Goldberg. Hope to catch you next time.